Most welcome to Humans TV Africa. You are live watching us at Humans TV Africa. Wherever you are in the world, remember we are a virtual TV network with, of course, physical studios in Uganda, Kenya, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria, UK, and the USA. We have studios right in those countries, and we want to open up more studios elsewhere. My name is Katom Kasa, I'm a Ugandan lawyer interested in issues development, human rights, and matters progress. Now, this is Humanist TV Africa. All of us are human beings in a way. That's why we call it Humanist TV Africa. Please, can you do us a favor, but also empower yourself by subscribing to our channel, Humanist TV Africa. On Facebook, we are there, but also on YouTube, we are there. Whatever show we do, these shows can be seen 1 year, 2 years from today. So it's very important to continue subscribing to our YouTube channel. We are a television station. You can also reach us by writing to us at info@humanistvafrica.com. Write us at info@humanistvafrica.com, but also send us a WhatsApp message. Our number is +254 7473 56767. And of course, our spokesperson, also communication officer, Brian Kabeko in Kenya, will be able to talk with you and answer your queries. You may want to work with us. You may want to bring a freelancer, to be an intern, to be a volunteer with us. In any country you are, we shall be able to open up a studio and work with you right in your country. We are a registered NGO. We are a registered non-government organization. Our work is to empower, inform, educate, but also do some bit of entertaining. But most importantly, we want to empower our people by changing mindset. Now, that is us, Humanist TV Africa. And here we are today with my senior comrade brother, Mr. Kimera Henry. We shall be talking about food fraud and, of course, safety challenges in Africa and beyond. We are looking at food fraud and safety challenges in Africa. Welcome once again to Humanist TV Africa, and my name is Katom Kasa. In the studio is Mr. Kimera Henry, a consumer advocacy rights professional, and of course, very experienced in that field. I know him for doing this work for over 20 years. And this is episode number 2 for the fraud safety challenges in Africa. We had episode 1 with Mr. Kimera Henry. Those of you who didn't actually watch the episode, simply go back in our archives. The episode is right there. You can always find it, and you can always watch it and be part of this program. Thank you so much. And let us welcome Mr. Kimera Henry in the studio right there. And shall be talking about food fraud, safety challenges in Africa. This is episode 2. In episode 1, he gave us a background. We watched some videos detailing how fraud is being done. He defined food fraud, but of course touched on some of the issues of safety challenges. He made a very powerful presentation. Please, if you missed episode 1, I want to encourage you to go back and watch episode 1. This is episode 2. We are going to be showing you a few slides about food fraud, safety challenges in Africa and globally. You are going to be able to benefit into this. Remember, Africa largely is a food producer. We are agriculturists. We produce food and can feed the entire world. So it's important that we look at food fraud, we look at food safety, we look at things to do with what we eat, because all of us at one point do eat food. So it's important that this discussion goes on now. As we wait for our guests, we normally have challenges in internet connectivity because we are live in the studio. Our programs are not recorded. We go live. Now I'm going to request our producer to showcase the slides which are prepared as our guest comes into the studio to take us into episode 2 today. Yes, the producer has given us Mr. Kimera is here. Mr. Kimera, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Paul. It is an honor to be with the global world, with the Humanist Africa TV. And it is a great honor. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the global humanity. As we are all consumers, I'm honored to come and share with you the consumer perspective from the African continent, which we think with 1.2 billion plus, we can do an influence and impact, irrespective of saying we hardly contribute to the global economy, but with the African economy trading within Africa with food sovereignty and food production, we can forget the side stories, all the upside down stories that we can't feed ourselves. We can, and if we can discuss food fraud and food safety, we can be a productive continent, and we can do it. So it is a great honor having you, colleagues, in the second episode, and I look forward to deliberating with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, sir. Welcome. And thank you so much, sir, Mr. Kimera. That is powerful. I used to say that my paternal grandfather used to say that a real man is defined by the size of his garden. A real man is defined by the size of his garden. And he used to tell me that if you don't have a garden, don't marry. Never said go to school. Never said have a car. He said if you don't have a garden, don't marry. So it means that food makes the home.
Paul, I can add on the indigenous knowledge and the wealth of your grandfather to say that with the farmer, the garden might have been to him or to you from the perspective of food. But if you go into agriculture, if you have a garden, you have got a diversity and a wealth of genetic resources. The genetic resources will not only be as in crop, but they can be as ecosystem. You bring in crop, you bring in animal, you bring in human, and the general environs that we stay in. All that garden provides you the wealth to give you the springboard of resilience and living productive, to procreate and to sustain.
That's great. I should tell you, Mr. Kimera, before we go to a recap, again, copying from our ancestors, my grandfather died in 2004. That was my maternal grandfather, the father of my mother. Remember our gardens in Africa. I come from Uganda, our viewers. Our gardens in Africa are also part of our medicine, because my grandmother would simply go and get umululuza and get all these herbs. We never went to hospitals. My mother's a trained nurse, but whenever I was in the village, we never bought anything from the pharmacy. Never. Even when we had a wound, like you have a cut, they would go and get sere. For you understand these things. Now, sere is a medicinal herb. You simply pick it from the garden. And they put sere and then tie it with a banana fiber, and you heal. I should tell you that to me, a garden was life. So when I look back about 20-something years ago, I think my grandfather had so much wisdom that a real man is determined by the size and the richness of his garden, not the vehicle he's driving, not the degree they are having. Bottom line is food. Now we go back to the recap for the last show, Mr. Kimera.
Okay, I will say that in the recap, what I wanted to say now. I will do that in the recap.
Yeah. Please go ahead now. It's your time.
Should I roll out the recap?
Yes.
Okay,
please.
Thank you very much, Paul, and our audience on the Humanities TV Africa. I would like to welcome you to the second episode. And we'll find that the episodes might end up dominating because food is politics.
Yeah.
Food governance comes in to rule and to drive and set the agendas. Like I was telling you the other day, COP28 revolved around food. These days, the discussions are revolving around food with Ukraine, Russia, aspects because of the 6 set out foods, and one of the biggest suppliers is Russia and Ukraine. Then when it comes to other aspects, taking in from Cato's grandfather, food is medicine. Food is the foundation that brings us together. I ask people these days, why do you sit around the dining table? It is all about food. And why? Because food starts our day. Air is part of food. Water is part of food. So the daily breathing that we are doing we are taking in air to contribute to facilitating our bodies to function. So I would like to go back to episode 1 and say that, ladies and gentlemen listening in, there is no security in any sovereign and unsovereign country without food. That is number 1. And what makes it sovereign, or what gives it security? It is food safety. You can have 1 million soldiers, but a single tampering with the quality and safety of their food, the whole country is vulnerable. So food safety is country security. It is human security. Food fraud is a global crime. Food fraud is a country insecurity. Unfortunately, as I recap, and which is going to be part of our major discussion today, there isn't any country that is productive if its citizens are not healthy. And one of the things that impede productivity and the health of citizens to be productive is their intake into the gut and the quality of what they take into their gut. It provides immunity, it provides energy, and it provides ability to think, plan, and deliver. So food governance is global governance. So as we are deliberating on food safety and food fraud, anybody in the African continent who tampers with the food security of 1.2 plus billion, that population makes us a formidable force globally. Just look at the global world. We are 8 billion, but we are the only continent that they mention that is 1 billion plus. The other 2 are subcontinents. India, which is 1.4, and China, which is also 1.4. They are all subcontinents, and they make up the Asian continent. But Africa, our population, once we are healthy, productive, we are a continent to be reckoned with. Let's forget the vagaries where we lack the governance to deliver us in food sovereignty. Food safety is a constitutional obligation. And it doesn't start with us, the citizens. It starts with the duty bearers. The duty bearers are obligated to put in place policy, legal, regulatory, institutional frameworks. These frameworks are to drive those of us who come from different countries that have had different measures, who have had kingdoms before the colonialists, and when the colonialists came, They found institutions functioning. If I would use Uganda as an example, and in Uganda there is a kingdom of Buganda. The kingdom of Buganda had a system where they would say that is the king's garden.
That's true.
The king's garden wasn't for the king per se, but it was used as a tool, an instrument for food security and food sovereignty. And even other tribes, all other regions were there. They had their own systems, which systems would provide food security and food sovereignty and security. What I enjoy today, when we were being called poor, developing and third world countries, that the practices that we had to be sovereignty, food secure, are the practices that were condemned then. We used to eat vegetables. We used to eat unprocessed food, and would keep us healthy. But the indices that came in, they are poor, they're sleeping under unthatched houses, they do not have access to piped water, they do not have access to cemented homes, they do not drive, they just walk. What is today called for healthy living? Walk over 10,000 feet, walk for over 30 minutes, ride a bicycle. It is unsustainable to sit and drive. What we used to do now is prescribed to us, and we are calling them gurus of health. Whereas we were gurus of health in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we were told we are backward. But now we are told we are unsustainable, and we are told to go back to our practices. So, my colleagues, I'm not castigating anybody, but I am only showing us that as a continent, we still have the values, we still have the aspects to drive the global dispensation. Because we are still a continent that consumes less processed food. We are still a continent that grows most of our food. We are only let down by our leaders who do not have policies that relate to our conditions. We do not have legislation that recognizes indigenous knowledge. We do not have legislation that promotes our local foods. All the legislations that we are promoting are all imported. But I wouldn't say that it is bad to benchmark globally. I want you to take note of that. I participate in standards development. As a country, we need to invest in research so that we get our indigenous knowledge, the way we used to produce nutritious foods, keep them of quality, because they are rich in the nutrients that by fortification, which is processed, comes to mitigate. So these are the aspects in episode 2. I want us, as the biggest socioeconomic group, we need to wake up, because we are 1.2 plus billion consumers on the African continent. We need to start demanding so that we have a market that is demand driven rather than supplier driven. To say that I know, recently we're having a discussion and we were asking ourselves, who set the menu of food in our schools to be maize flour and beans,
Good
which
question.
is less nutritious. But we have got millet, we have got sorghum, which is more nutritious and at times might be cheaper than maize flour. So these are the discussions as the African continent we will need to discuss as we discuss food safety and food fraud. Maybe setting the agenda and the menu for schools, which is supplier driven, to be maize and beans, it could be food fraud.
Let me stop you there, Mr. Chimera. Now, it's very interesting. You have said something which I thought about, but I never had the courage to dig deeper. But before that, let me give you an example of my grandfather. I always talk about him in my books. I had two grandfathers in my life who were my teachers. In fact, my grandfathers were better teachers than my father. My father was more philosophical, but my grandfathers were better teachers than my father. Now, they are more practical. They are always there for me when I wanted them. Now, my paternal grandfather is different, but also he had his own style. But my maternal grandfather was more rigid, more conservative, and more hardcore. Now, if the guy told me that a real man is not defined by the vehicle he's driving, by the big house he has, but the garden he has, because he was comparing himself with my paternal grandfather, who was richer and showy, had big car, a very big house on the village, very big lands and all that. And for him, he had also his money, had wealth, but he never showed it off. He was riding a bicycle. He used to have a vehicle. He was riding a bicycle until when he died, 80 plus. So you could say it's not about the vehicle. It's about my garden. It's about the life I get. And you could tell me, look, when I ride my bicycle, I'm more normal, I'm more healthy than every other person who is always sitting driving. They are lazy. Now, and you could take us to the garden at about 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning, this guy takes us to dig. Like I normally say, as if we are slaves, but we are his grandchildren. He was teaching us the value of the garden. That's why I told you before we went live that I have a garden, that I'm a proud farmer. Though I'm a small scale farmer, I'm proud that sometimes I get food from my own garden to feed my family. That I cannot be buying food in Uganda on a daily. No. Some of the food comes from my garden because I have my land, I have my gardens. So looking at that makes me have that my grandfather, maternal, specifically from the father of my mother, was foresighted to see things people didn't see then. That having a big vehicle is not something very impressive. Having a big house is not something very impressive. Do you have food? Do you have food? Can you feed your family? To him, that was the most important thing. Next, you talked about food we eat at school. I was in school much of the time, of course. I always wondered, why do these guys feed us with posho and beans? Now, when you said it, I never had courage to research on that. But when you said it, my mind was tickled. I was like, why? Look, in Masaka, we have bananas. They may say they are expensive, but fine, we have them. But we also have potatoes.
True.
And potatoes, to me, are much cheaper. But we also have cassava. Also, we have some bit of millet. Why were the schools conditioned that we cannot eat ground nuts, for example, but we must eat beans? I'm not a scientist per se. I'm not so good at food and nutrition, but I'm looking at the combination that could make us sleep in class every afternoon. To me, after eating lunch, I would struggle with afternoon lessons. I would always go outside and wash my face. That's how lazy I was after eating. Because I realized that the food combination I'm given doesn't rhyme with my body. When I eat it, I get weak. So when he said it, I was wondering, why do these Africans who are organizing our food policy in schools zeal on posho and beans? Was it because it was available? There were other options. Was it because it was cheap? I don't know. Now, because you said it, it tickled down in my mind and said, why? Wait a minute. Why do our children being fed poor? Over to you. Talking about food policy again.
So having said all that, it still goes back to food. And if we are talking of poverty, our colleague, nutrition poverty can be even far worse off, or I would say it is far worse off than money poverty. Because if you are not nutritious, if you and your body is malnourished, you are not productive.
Yeah.
You are disease prone. Whatever income you earn, you are going to spend it on drugs. So that is why I say food is medicine. It makes you healthy and you are immune to food disease or to diseases. So when we are looking at poverty, we shouldn't look at it economically or money-wise. Like your grandfather was saying, poverty being driving a big car, you're not regarded poor. We can be with all of these SOVs when we are moral poverty, we are nutritional poverty. Those who have got data for areas where there is a lot of financial wealth, but the population is malnourished. You can see them with big bellies like mine, but when you go nutritiously, I am malnourished because I don't get the nutrients that I require to be a healthy, productive consumer. That is why I wish to see that we nurture a quality culture, that whoever legislates for us, whoever is in executive, thinks about the quality culture. Policies are thinking about the quality of humanity, quality of life. Legislature is thinking about the quality of life. Regulatory institutions and businesses are thinking about the quality of life. I would say that I am privileged with my organizations and all the organizations I'm linked to. We contribute to policy, we contribute to regulation. Like I told you last time, I have an opportunity to work in the different technical committees at the National Bureau of Standards. I have an opportunity to work with partners in Mbale where we are improving markets and looking at food safety. I have an opportunity to be working with the Food Safety Coalition Uganda. Some of the slides that we are going to share come from, and all this is informing food safety. It is informing to avert food fraud. All this, then I go to the continental level to join the Africa Standards Organization to talk about food safety there and aspects to do with consumers to be aware, to speak out on things that affect our health. Majority of our income as consumers, 60% of it is spent on food.
Yeah.
Then unfortunately, another 10 to 20% is spent in pharmacies. So that's why I'm telling you, colleagues, it is very key to discuss food fraud and food safety, because that's where most of our income goes. Whenever you earn, Paul, whenever you earn on a daily basis, what do you think about when you wake up? What is in the fridge? What am I going to buy in the supermarket? Those are all needs and wants, but are all related to what we are putting in our gut to keep healthy. To date, the majority of consumers are youth. And at times I joke and say, use an analogy, that they are like a milling plant. A milling plant consumes and meals very fast. And that is what the youth that we have today are more in consumption, less in production. They might be productive in the service sector, but most of them have left the labor sector or the service provision in agriculture sector. They have come to the urbanization a trend that is going on. And to me, the urbanization trend that we are experiencing today, even in the rural area setup, there is urbanization because the trading centers are mushrooming. And what do they eat? You'll find 90% or let's say 50-50. Majority is junk food. They drink carbonated drinks. They consume Rolex, chapati, beans. When they don't afford beans, they put soup for us. Just imagine, to have a flavor of the beans, they put soup. And where do they put that? Most of them, you walk in the city, in all of these urbanized areas, is put in polythene. Polythene is not, some of the polythene isn't food grade. Contaminants are migrating into the less nutritious food and making it more unsafe. All of us, let's go to our trading centers, wherever we are on the African continent, and we see even our kinsfolks that are in the deep rural areas, when they buy food, the packaging material, which is part of food fraud, is not food grade quality. We put in our food, which at times migrates directly into the food stuff. You see, when we are looking at the food environment, when we are looking at standards, we have got standards of packaging material that gets in contact with food. It should be of good quality. But we'll find that we are taking on the new cultures, the new approaches with the swag to be seen walking with a cup of coffee. But some of these cups are not of good quality. Through fraud and lack of regulation that facilitates business to make sure that business is better and consumers get better to live a quality life, to earn and spend to grow our economies, we end up failing to legislate, failing to facilitate, to provide the consumers, to provide the businesses to provide us better, so that whatever we are consuming is of good quality, so that we are productive, we earn an income and have a dispensable income to go and be a positive market for the businesses. But we end up in sick care.
Yes.
So we end up giving whatever hard-earned money to pharmaceuticals. The best farmers we have in Africa is farmers, which is food farmers, but of quality, not food fraud. Not food fraud. So, Paul, Kato, that is how I wanted today to just juggle us, tweak us, catalyze us, to look at policy, to look at legislation, to look at regulation, and see to it that the businesses and the actual framework, as the majority of the socio-economic dispensation, we are in position to speak out and say, this is the kind of food we wish.
Yes. Thank you so much.
If you give me another opportunity, I'll be talking about food courts in the global world, the food street vended foods. As we are trying to fight it in Africa because we think it is wrong, which I say it is right, because they provide accessible food that is available and affordable, We need to just facilitate them to do better business and keep us healthy.
Yes, thank you, sir. I want to come in right there. And of course, say in advance that we shall be having Mr. Kimera over and over. This is episode 2. The reason why we mentioned episode 1, 2, because we're going to have up to episode whatever it will take. Why? Because all of us wake up every day to eat. Don't talk about work. We first eat. Even during work, basically we eat. We take a water, we take a
Like I'm
soda.
drinking.
Because food is the engine. That's why we are saying we're going to have Mr. Kimera here for a long time or in so many episodes. Food is a big thing, of course. We shall be talking about even chemicals and all this, the GMOs. It's a long conversation. The land is part of food, the waters. There are so many things. Climate is part of food. I mean, it's a very big conversation we shall be having right here. Now, but today, we're talking about food, especially we're talking about institutions, we're talking about the legal framework, we're talking about the policy framework. Now, Mr. Kimera, as an expert, is going to be giving us highlights on some of these things. Looking at the legal framework, looking at the policy framework, the institutions, let us drill down on Uganda, for example, our country. Uganda, basically, we say that it's an agriculture-oriented country where, if I'm very good with my stats, at least 80% of people in Uganda derive their livelihood through agriculture. I've told you I'm a lawyer by profession, but I rely on my garden, not on my law firm, to feed my family today. On my garden. And I'm blessed to have more than one garden, but at least I'm happy. I'm a farmer, a small farmer. Even when I'm an internet farmer, I call my workers and say, please, let us now look at the cassava, let us look at the maize, let us look at the bananas on the internet because I'm not in Uganda. So even then, I say agriculture sustains my little family. Now, having said that, how many of us in Uganda know that we even have a policy on agriculture? How many of us in Uganda even know that we have institutions that actually cater for farmers? Because where I come from, basically my people are rural and less informed about these things. So, Mr. Kimera, taking us through the policy, what do we have on table, for example, in terms of institutional framework in Uganda?
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that we have a national agriculture policy in Uganda that is in agriculture. And there are a number of many other policies. We have got the National Agriculture Extension Policy, where this would go down to provide for guide farmers in production. Then we have the National Organic Policy in Uganda. We have got different policies, as in seed, related to seed, related to agrochemicals, I would say policies and regulations. Then we have other aspects, policies that relate to, I'll bring in others that relate to, let's say, the grain policy or the grain trade policy, which talks about quality and addresses a number of things to do with fraud. We have got the coffee, we have got different policies that will go on addressing the different aspects with regards to the food value chain. The other policies that now I would like to fixate with food fraud and safety. Standards are also policies. We have more than 1,000 food and agriculture related standards. Like I said last time, I sit on some of the technical committees in the National Bureau of Standards, which technical committees bring different stakeholders to generate or to develop standards, either adopt international standards and localize them, or even adapt from Codex Alimentarius Commission, which is a WHO FAO established commission, which provides food safety standards. There are some in testing and so forth, which we adopt or adapt from the International Standards Organization that fit our local dispensation. Then there are East African standards, which we use as a region. Then, like I informed you last time, we play a role. I'm part of the Africa Standards Organization, where I chair the committee, the Consumer Committee. But at that level, there are other technical committees that are generating standards so that Africa has one standard that can be used as a continent. And with the African Continental Free Trade Area, those standards will be used so that goods travel to different countries. And this is where we need to seriously discuss food fraud and food safety, so that as goods travel from Dakar to Dar es Salaam, from Cairo to Cape Town, from Kampala I'm looking for another capital which is starting with K, and Kinshasa. Then from Tripoli, to Harare, and so forth, so that the goods that are traveling these standards are facilitating made in Africa, processed in Africa, produced and traded in Africa, so that if a good is, or a food is tested in Uganda, it can go to all the other 53 plus African member states without any encumbrances. So that requires us to generate a quality culture as a continent to think. Most of the times, we fail to invest, and that is where I am now laying, where I say governance plays a role. And governance should be in food governance. If we are to remain sovereign as an African continent, we need to invest in our food systems. Not donor investment, but African investment got from the taxes of the African taxpayers, got from the coffers, that is not hinged on donors. We invest in research, because at times when we go to develop standards and they ask, where's your African data to say that this is not good for Africa, this is an African good, we have got data to say the parameters you are setting for us as Africans with African rice or cassava, these will impede cassava, all African fish, African vegetables, African goods thriving on the African market and the global market. So we need to invest in data collection, research, innovations as the African continent. Number two, we need to invest in sensitizing the 1.2 billion to believe in African foods as indigenous, highly nutritious, and they are palatable to our physiology. They are palatable. Yes, please.
Let me check you there a bit, because then our producer normally makes quotations out of our guests' words, and we pin these quotations all over our TV stations, wherever they are. You made a quotation which I wanted Dennis to capture. You said that if Africa is to be food secure, we must invest in systems, in institutions, and of course in research and innovation. I quoted that. I wanted Dennis to pick it. Of course, Dennis is a lot more than me. Sometimes he picks things I haven't even heard, but I thought that's important. But also, something which is intriguing me as an African, born in Africa, raised in Africa, that you say that we must sensitize our people to start respecting their indigenous foods. To me, and you are right, but to me, it's a big insult that someone has made me forget that actually amayuni is a good food for me, that basically muhogo is a good thing for me, good food for me, that actually potatoes are good for me, that actually bananas, beans, as they were 100 years ago, are still good for me than actually going for A, B, C, D from the so-called this kind of world.
Can I
Surprisingly,
give
which is
you
also annoying.
can I give you a sad story there, Paul?
Give me that
And
one.
which is, I'm not saying I'm castigating business, but now
Mm,
this is a blame to consumers where we are tending to be irresponsible. And this goes back to schools.
mm,
Schools are starting in February.
mm.
1 month after, we are going to have visitations. But schools refused us as parents to take cooked food to school.
Yes.
But do you know what they call cooked food is indigenous homemade food, but they
Yes.
allow fast foods. KFC is doing business. Cafe Javas is doing business. I'm not saying it is bad, but how do you go and downgrade the food of your children eat when they are in holidays? They don't eat KFC now as a daily meal. But look at the school administration saying, don't bring cooked food, but you are allowed to bring packed KFC, Cafe Javas, or any other fast food.
I will
What
intervene there.
mental and mindset bankruptcy is that?
You saw me doing a mirundi here, like our heads are becoming watered so much. Our brains are becoming
And we
watered.
call ourselves a sovereign country where we can't speak out on this. We are a country experiencing non-communicable diseases, taking in a lot of fatty acids, taking in a lot of salts, sugars. It is a swag and a pride to be, it's a consumer choice. Okay, it's all right. To be seen walking with a carbonated drink, to be seen walking with a branded takeaway and walking into a school with a cart or a wheelbarrow, 90% of it are processed foods that are going to make our children obese. Because most of the school institutions that we have do not have facilities for physical education. We grew up doing physical education.
It was a must.
We have sold and built in all those spaces. This is food fraud.
Let me check you there. The conversation is very interesting, and I'm so sad our time is running so bad. Dennis, we are going to borrow more 20 minutes to this program because, we are going to borrow more time. Honestly, there are things which annoy me, and I think we have been programmed to think like zombies. I am 45 years old, and I grew up in an environment where I was studying in big schools, and PE, physical education, was a must. Now, today, I am a parent. I have children in boarding school. You are very right. They don't allow us to take cooked food. I asked why. They said because children are poisoned. Then I told them, do you believe that the mother of the children can poison them? The mother of the children cooks food, brings it, and poison her own children. I told them straight up. If it was the maid bringing the food or a co-wife or a relative, maybe you would say your point is valid. But a mother of a child cannot poison their own children unless otherwise. In fact, I forced that school to allow my mother to take, the grandmother of the children, to take food for the children. My mother took food, cooked food, locally cooked food at home, took food for her grandchildren to that school. in the in the visitation, and it was allowed. I said, no, there's no way you can continue doing things in a stupid way. This is Africa, this is Uganda. There's no way we are going to bring stupid sodas and all these things for our children to take. It has taken me 40 years, Mr. Kimera, 44 years to abandon sugar. I told you I'm 45 now. It has taken me 44 years to abandon sugar, to start taking honey, or at least plain water. 44 years. My mind was wired that if I don't take sugar, I won't survive. Now, it's programming. It's programming. We are going to borrow more 20 minutes, Mr. Kimera. Dennis, may you please play for us slides? Mr. Kimera is going to continue talking whatever he wants to say, but the slides should be seen, basically for our viewers, because they can always pause the video and continue. Mr. Kimera, continue.
So, Paul, you have just said something that I asked before my daughter and son left the secondary school. So, food that we consume at home on a daily basis versus fast food. And when we go to figures and studies, which is more poisonous?
Yes. Let's continue with slides. Let's continue with slides. Yes.
I would like to commend the Anti-Counterfeit Network Africa. I'm using their slide, which shows aflatoxin. That is a food safety aspect. I am a board member with Food Rights Alliance, and its partner, USAID, they are running a joint aflatoxin mitigation campaign. This is where the slide comes in. Like we were talking about maize, that is a major meal in schools. You'll find that food coming from home, prepared at home, is more safe than the junk food we are allowed to take to schools. So where schools administration, members that are not in Uganda and global in Africa or continental in Africa, you should campaign to see to it that schools do not muzzle us to feed our children on fast foods. When we go to visit them, they should allow us to carry food. So aflatoxin is a challenge, and we need to address it. So as we go on, true, we need to guard ourselves against all these foods to make sure that food safety is promoted and guaranteed in all the food environments, enable us to be productive. This one, I did bring it in from FAO, that it is very good to be anticipatory. If you are with regards to governance, policy, legal, and regulatory framework, it is very good to be anticipatory and prepare. That will build resilience. If you know that we are a country that is in a template, we need to prepare and always have mitigation measures, not only for the vulnerable rural, but also for the vulnerable urban. You'll appreciate that the urban poor are more vulnerable than the rural poor, because the urban poor will eat from garbage. The rural poor once in a while might get a nutritious food, but the urban poor might not.
Yes.
Though the urban poor tend to be more resilient because of the different aspects they see, and because there is a lot of food loss and waste in the urban area, so they tend to be well covered in one way or another. But anticipatory aspects are very key, and I would like every African country to pick up this slide from FAO and take it on to implement it in their countries, to call upon their local leaders, regional leaders, and members of parliament to ask the executive to implement anticipatory actions. These make us have dignity. You see, without unable to feed your family, you are indignified. You'd have no value, like the grandfather of Paul used to tell, maternal grandfather used to say. Like the discussion we are having today, if well enshrined in policies, well enshrined in legal regulatory frameworks and businesses adhere to, we will be able to have better production, the production that facilitates and takes care of the environment. Know that with bad environment, we cannot have good production. We will have better nutrition. Like I mentioned earlier, nutrition poverty stifles education, stifles innovation, stifles productivity. Colleagues, a better environment facilitates productivity, facilitates growth, facilitates resilience. If you are operating in an environment that has got contaminated air, you will end up spending money on respiratory treatment. If the environment is bad, it will bring in unsafe food due to contaminated water. We will not be in position to alleviate poverty due to poor environmental or poverty environment. Better life. This is the foundation. This is the key. Without anti-fraud in food, without frameworks to have food safety, we can never have a better life. And this is not only for the consumers who are resource poor and who are not listened to. If I get food that is contaminated and I get cholera, most of the house helpers live in very poor environment. Once they get cholera and they come to your house, however rich you are, they will contaminate your household. So let's not be selfish. Let's make sure whoever gets good quality food. These I'm picking up from FUSCU, the Food Safety Coalition of Uganda, or Food Safety Coalition Uganda, where we are looking at the value chain, sensitizing consumers that the quality of meat and eventually beef starts at the farm. The grass, the water, the treatment, the vaccines. If we treat the cow or the cattle, and it says there should be a withholding period of 2 weeks, and you inject it today, tomorrow you take it to the market, there will be pesticides residues in the meat. And this will affect us, the consumers, in that we will get antibiotics resistance. That the slaughterhouses, if the hygiene, the environment is not clean, may you go back to the abattoir side, the beef slide. I want to pass, okay, this one too comes in. The withdrawal period I was talking about. Let's move to next. So if the abattoir where they slaughter the cow from isn't clean, some of these pathogens may pass on to the human, and they might go in also through the meat value chain. Some of us, the way we prepare food, we might have it half done or fully well done, but if the environment isn't good, the resistance I was talking about comes in. So we end up being affected in aspects of food safety as consumers. And if all of these acaricides are not of good quality due to food fraud, then we get, or due to fraud, then we get affected. Hygiene right from farm to the abattoir to the butchers is very key. Some of these diseases have been talking about cholera. A butcher person, if there are not toilet facilities, goes to the bush and comes back under the cayenne tree to sell you meat, then it ends up affecting you. So this is very key. Some of us in our countries, we have got chemical abuse, and it is a campaign that we are running at FUSCU, the Food Safety Coalition, and Consent Consumer Center to make sure, and other members, to make sure that there isn't chemical abuse. We'll appreciate whether synthetic or organic chemicals, once not used correctly, they end up endangering our public health. So it is very key to make sure that at whatever stage we are doing aspects of food safety, we make sure that we use the chemicals, whether agricultural or public health chemicals, in the right manner, in that we are healthy as consumers. And all of these, colleagues, is provided by policy, legal, regulatory frameworks. If institutions are not invested in to do surveillance, if institutions are not invested in to do investigations, to do food control management, to do food inspection, when they see something going wrong, to do recalls and tracking systems, to do food monitoring and testing, a country can never be food sovereign. Aspects of, you see, when we look at anti-spatory approaches, legislation, regulations, and legal frameworks play a role because they provide a system to make sure that consumers are not affected, food businesses are not affected, and the national economy. So as we are looking at all this, it is funding is very key. When you look at the budgets that we put in these institutions, we call the competent authorities, to be fully fledged so that they drive businesses to operate on ethics and provide quality goods and services. The budgets are minimal and worrying. So if you, like any business, if they are to do business, they put a proportion to produce quality. We need to put, let's say, 50 to 60% of our budget in provision of that. But you'll find that national budgets, when you look at them towards agriculture, towards competent authorities like the National Bureau of Standards of Uganda, has got a dismal, a worrying, and an absurd budget. And the next minute, both politicians, civil servants, businesses, and us, the consumers, we go and condemn these competent authorities that are supposed to safeguard us, not to provide to safeguard us. But how do you expect a regulatory institution to safeguard you when it has no resources to function? So this is where, in all the countries we are in, we need to call upon our politicians, we call upon our legislature and fellow technical or competent authorities to know, without a systems approach with regards to quality. If I use the Uganda case study, if the National Bureau of Standards is effective, it will facilitate the local governments to earn more revenue, because whatever would be there, consumers would be healthy, and the businesses are paying taxes and local revenue will not be making losses. The businesses in digital businesses in different transport should be concerned when they see one area that makes their game being affected. If I fall sick as a consumer, There are ripple effect backwards, even up to the farmer. And this is when I'm discussing in all these with my colleagues in all these aspects, I discuss the farmer-consumer dialogue. What affects the consumer affects the farmer, affects the business, affects government. Because a sick consumer brings a healthy burden to the healthy budget. So, as duty bearers in government, it is very key to invest in different competent authorities that provide. If there is primary health care and food is of good quality, there will be less of sick care. There will be more of productivity and productivity care with quality of life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera. You have had a good run. I'm going to have to stop you there for episode 2. It has been really interesting. I wanted to get more time, but we are going to stop it at this. I want to quote you on this. You said that basically to have a better conversation, to have food security, we are talking about food fight today and safety challenges. We need to look at the farmer consumer having a dialogue. I wanted to add something that also we need to bring in the seller and the government, because here we have a farmer. I'm a farmer. I'm a very small scale farmer. Basically, I do food for my own home. You call it what? That where you are farming for your
home consumption.
Your own consumption. There's a term they use in economics. Now, I'm a very small scale farmer, but now there is a farmer and there is a consumer, but also I'm talking about a seller. We need to look at the seller also in the chain, because the seller does the fraud. The seller does the fraud because they want to get excessive profits. This is capitalism, the value chain right there, but also the government. Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera. We are going to have you back on Saturday, if all goes well, for episode 3. I told the viewers that food is life. Africa is 80% relying on food, agriculture. So to us as Human TV Africa, we are going to talk more about agriculture, because people are abandoning our own farms to go and become slaves when they have lands. I call them lands, though it must be land. When they have big chunks of land, they are selling their pieces of land to buy motorcycles and end up being killed on the road, and they leave the land, which is our wealth, which is our source of income and livelihood. So this program is for you. It's empower people. Understand your land, understand agriculture, understand safety, understand challenges, and then move forward. Mr. Kimera, give us your conclusion for today. We shall be back on Saturday for another episode 3, if all is well with you then.
Humanist TV Africa, thank you very much. I would like to I look forward to being with you in our next episode. I would like to say to you all consumers, whether you are a farmer, you are a business person, you are a politician, you are a consumer, because you do not produce whatever you use in your life. Its quality is very key. So we need to nurture a quality culture by awakening our conscience with regards to the quality of goods and services we receive. So my parting shot is, let's build and grow and sustain humanity through quality culture, quality systems, and quality services. Looking forward to seeing you next Saturday and talking to you. Thank you very much.
That was powerful. I should tell you, I keep on learning from you, and to me, this has been a very, very informative show. My senior colleague in London, it's called Paul Ewans, is an Englishman, watched your first episode and told me, we need this guy back. It was really very educative. And people are watching, I should tell you, and they're appreciating whoever watches this. If you follow our views. People are watching your show. They are more interested in this. There is Andrew Senior says very informative. See, people are watching, people are watching, especially the people I know give me feedback directly. Like Mr. Paul Ewan told me, bring this guy back. It was really very informative. They are here in England, they are English people, but they enjoy the show because it's about agriculture. And all of us eat food because we must eat to survive. Remember, my mother is a nurse. Used to say that if you don't eat food well, you're going to eat medicine as food. You're going to eat medicine as food. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Timera. I was looking for that economics word. It's called subsistence farming. I'm a subsistence
Yeah.
farmer because I don't produce for the market. I produce for my few children to eat. Thank you so much, Mr. Chimera. We are going to have you back, if all is well, of course, next Saturday. Thank you so much for your time. Dennis Bongo in the studio. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can always get this information right here. It will be here for a year plus, plus, plus. Please subscribe. Write to us at info@Humanist TV Africa, but also WhatsApp. It is +254 7473 56767. Brian Kabek in Kenya is going to be able to reply to you. See you in the next one.
Stop week. Ciao.
Yeah, thank you so much.